Thank you.
Yeah. So, mic working, everything working? Fine? Good. So, yeah, let's get into it directly. So, I'm going basically to present you what we build on top of Exoscale and Vision as a product on why those key partners are awesome. But first, thank you all for being here. Thank you for allowing me to speak about our company, because we are still a young company. We are only 4 years old. And what we do basically, we're building softwares and infrastructure so bank and other financial savvy institutions can manage digital assets. Could be cryptocurrencies, could be NFT, could be identity, whatever you want, as long as it's working on a digital ledger. That's basically it. Before going into the gritty details of our project on ourselves and other news that we come around, I just want to make some kind of statement about the digital ledger economy, because everybody saw Luna. So basically what we discovered over the last years is that things are growing exponentially. Even if there is some hiccup, it's still growing. The digital markets have moved from cryptocurrencies to whatever you want on the blockchain to know some very sophisticated object and construct on the blockchain. And those graphics just show you how the market is booming now. And it's really each year we see more and more demand despite every kind of crisis you can imagine. Bank institutions are coming more and more into the market now. And before going into more details on everything, I want to say that our company is growing really fast. We see a constant expansion, and we are lucky for this. We are lucky to be in a good market. We are lucky to have very good engineers that are pushing us forward. For people who don't know, we are 80% engineers. I am myself a software developer, slightly forced to be on the sales side. And we also are very lucky to have great partners like Vision and Exoscale who are having our backs while we're developing new technology. So that way we have a synergy that's allowing us to go forward all the time. And in terms of crypto, because you all know crypto, so let's go back into history a little bit about the third generation of crypto. The first one, the classic, the Bitcoin, the Ether, you all know. I'm speaking at those Bitcoin, which was 2 Swiss francs at the epoch, and you prefer to purchase a PlayStation 1 instead of investing into crypto. That was the first generation of crypto users with small exchanges, wallets, public key on Dropbox, private key on Dropbox. If you have this, please notify me, and so on. That was the first generation, so really low early actors and so on. Then we get into the second generation. The second generation is where people discovered that smart contracts are essentially code that you put on the blockchain. And what do marketing people think about when you say code on the blockchain? Let's put everything on the blockchain. And that's why you see all that trends about logistics on the blockchain, crypto exchange on the blockchain, monkey on the blockchain, identity management on the blockchain, and of course, digitalized assets and other things. So that was the second generation, the one where basically everybody started to know about blockchain, first actors getting into the market. And we will come later on with the Swiss adoption of it, like Vontobel, which were like a really, really, really early adopters. That was these generations. And now, what we see is that as the market is growing, the technology are evolving, the maturity is growing. We're entering in the third generation. The third generation is where people taking real valuable use cases and trying to digitalize them. That could be still NFT, but that could be, for example, a Porfranc with 700 million of valued art belonging to a single owner, and you decide, okay, what I do, I digitalize that amount in terms of token that you can distribute freely, which is going to be more fluid. Fluid in the financial market mean, or liquid, that means you can exchange it at a faster rate. It could be structured product, for example, you have the third pillar, and your third pillar is a high risk, and you want some crypto in your third pillar. Those kind of things become in the third generation, and we also see now using smart contract, that code you put on the blockchain, to essentially structures regulation. As an example, if you want to digitalize a company in Switzerland, you probably all know about Coca in Switzerland. You know that Coca is going to sell part of their share digitally through our platforms. That's going to happen tonight via Exoscale. So people, I don't know who is there, but he knows that 7 million people are going to connect to the Geneva data centers tonight. You're happy to know it. And basically, to digitalize a company, you need regulation. You need register of those shares. You need proof of ownership. And those things coming on the blockchain via smart contract like the CMTRT are regulated by Swiss law. And this is like the third generation is coming on. states regulate how, by regulation, by FINMA regulation, by BaFin regulation, how you do blockchain assets management properly. How do you digitalize company outside of the classic stock exchange, which costs you a gazillion of money to get into? How do you money raising with a digitalized operation? That's the kind of things where we're facing now. And that's where our company come from and why we've been created to offer the bank and the financial institution the tool to harness those evolution. And that's come with a set of products, of course. So everybody there is a little bit tech savvy, so I can, without going too technical, I won't surprise anybody telling you cryptocurrencies is about private key. You need to sign something to go onto the blockchain. So the first things we created was Taurus Protect. Taurus Protect is basically a set of software and hardware that allow you to protect your private key and put on top of it a system of compliance frameworks, because we would setting to work with bank. In bank, if you want to do a transaction above, let's say, 100 of Bitcoin or 1,000 of Bitcoin, and we saw recently, you need multiple validation, and you need to formally prove that all those persons have signed before getting onto the ledger. And the signatures need to be out of the ledger because you don't want people observing the ledger to see your validation structures. And that's kind of technology we are building up now. Then we spoke about digital assets, like company, like NFT. You need a platform to issue them. You need something that helps you to frame all the blockchain requests on the API call, because bankers do not know how to code API. And don't try to throw them Postman, that's not gonna work. So we created Taurus Capital for this. Taurus Capital is a platform where you basically use template of smart contract, and we deal for the life cycle for you. And because Taurus Protect is on the side, your operations going to be protected by your own frameworks you set up in Taurus Protect. Basically, that's the two tools, integrating with all the bank ecosystems, core banking, e-banking, internal platform, operation platforms. On the right side, yes, it's the right from your side. On the right side, you see Taurus Explorer. That's a very interesting thing to discuss, and that was the first big discussion we had with Exoscale about performances. Blockchain rely on blockchain nodes. Blockchain nodes are basically piece of software, most of the time not things about for operation, monitoring, how do you maintain them over the long term. So you have to have those blockchain nodes. Then you need to build up a ton of monitoring around it, so that's why it's starting to work quite kind of properly. Most of them are not made to be run into Kubernetes, so you also have then to rewrap them around some other software so that liveness and readiness prop just work. And of course, those nodes do not have history. They just have the latest thing. They keep track of history, but you cannot access them. It's on the file system. So what we did a huge index. We basically know indexing the blockchain in real time. That's why our product or our customer product can interrogate the blockchain, broadcast transactions, know when things happen on the blockchain. And that's a huge amount of data, really a huge amount of data. And that's for things we work with Exoscale, because they can provide us hypervisors like Candy Bar that we can just rack up as much as we go, because you probably know it, blockchain do not reduce in size, they just continually increase. So that means your set of data just going bigger and bigger and bigger, and people always want the full history access. Unless also you think how a nightmare it is from the database size to take care of this. So that's basically the project we do. The latest blocks is something we did early last year. It's a digital exchanges, a bit like Bitcoin or Kraken, currently open for digitalized asset with what you call a secondary marketplace. Those company assets that you digitalize, you can exchange them on TEDx. Those Coca shares that you will purchase tonight if you go there, or Flying Tomato, that's another one which digitalized, you will find them on this platform. You will be able to sell them and to exchange them with other kind of assets. So that's basically the product we have. We have been regulated by the FINMA, which means on top of already having super difficulties, having big databases, working with unstable technology, now we have FINMA regulation which forces us to be all the IT corporate compliant things you can imagine. So we also have to deal with it. And I will come later why it's very important for our business to be at the top level of the quality and the respect of the security. And that's also why we have very trustable partner for this. So in terms of history, it's a bit funny. Basically, I'm there with the beginning, with another friend which was also a developer. We won the RFP before having a product. So we won the RFP with the first Swiss bank to opening really crypto management, which was called Vontobel, and I said, like, fine, we won the RFP. Now we have to develop the product. So that was kind of a rush. That's the startup spirit. So we developed the product. We started to operate it ourselves, all on-premise, but the blockchain node infrastructure that was on the cloud. At this point, we discover that's super cool to have our own infrastructures, but we need more DevOps, and we need more infra, and I prefer to hire developers than DevOps, because that's what produces value in my business line. So that's when we started to search for our providers. I decided to not go with public provider, first of all, because they were too expensive, and second of all, because I have no contact with them. I cannot discuss, I cannot go in the flexible way when you need to go fast, when you need the features to be slightly tricked, when your deployment is slightly out of the norms, when you ask your provider to give you a lot of logs and a lot of detail. That's kind of things you don't get with public cloud providers. So we decided to go with local actors we know and we can trust, and we can have open discussion with them when we grow business. Then from now on, things have been exponential. We're getting more and more and more customers. One of the big milestones, I would say, is that we acquired one of our public customers now, which is Swissquote. That was the first huge scaling. That's the biggest marketplace in Switzerland. And you probably saw in the news, digitalization of company become institutional with Credit Suisse that selected us to be the tokenization platform for this. And that was also a very huge milestone. And now we are lucky to be one of the leading providers in Switzerland. We are a real major challenger in Europe, and we're starting to expand about now. So that means the company is growing faster, and that's why we need strong providers. Why we also need strong providers? It's because banks have always a bit of a complex way of deploying things. They want everything on-premise, but they want it to be low in OpEx. And they don't want to deal with the update, but they want to still remain on-premise. To be simple, our software is composed of three parts. You have the software part, which are Helm chart, Docker containers. You have a databases, and you have an HSM for storing the private key, because you need a secure enclosure. What we offer is to customers to decide what they want to host where. They could decide to us, please Taurus host everything, or please Taurus, I keep the HSM on-premise, and you host the software. That's mean in that way, we are running as a managed services part of the central infrastructure of the bank, because that's where the assets are held on Exoscale, helped by Vision. And that they offer us the flexibility and the way to offer that possibility. Otherwise, with the size of our teams, we won't be able, even if we are like close to 50 developers now, it's still not enough to offer the quality of service you need to provide this at a level which is compliant with the FINMA. Don't break SOC tip 2 of your customer, don't break ISO 27 of your customers, and so on. But we also have more. We also have some cool use cases. I just need to see in which order they are. The first one is basically a crypto bank. A crypto bank is a bank that deal with only crypto. There is only two of them in Switzerland, the two of them working with us, basically. And they started to work on premise, and they discovered that the load for themselves was way too high to handle. And they wanted us to be able to help them with update, to help them with debugging when there was an issue. So we had to move them from an on-premise to a hybrid deployment with the help of our providers. But they're working now. I know it's something which is a really good trend you see in the market to have like an hybrid deployment. Critical part like HSM, I keep it at home, but everything that costs money and have no added value, like updating my software, please, Taurus, deal with it. That's one of the cases where we do hybrid. We also had things which have been slowly coming is the integration time. For everybody who have worked with bank, you know integration times can be quite long. So we also work a lot to making the process smooth and to integrate quickly. And one of the key advantages that will come is like Vision and Exoscale are Swiss provider. When you work with bank, this is a mark of quality because they are not affected by many of the international law, and you are good to go for check for compliance. And that hybrid way also opened us a way to deliver very quickly. We moved from 6-month integration to 3 weeks with that customers for our deployments, and even faster, because when you get super cool OpenShift deployment with typically Argo CD by default inside of the supply chain, deploying new environment for customers is a matter of a click. Now we had a huge retail bank that we deployed in like 1 week, from bottom to end, API integration, everything. And that's the kind of trend we see. We need to go faster, and we need to offer more flexibility. And extending in Europe, that's going to be the same. You need providers which are local, where you can deploy your stack and have trust and security. That's why we also wait a lot for secure and digital trust of our provider. And finally, I just wanted to emphasize some of the key point that why we work it for them, because that's the goal of these sessions. The first one is time to market. When you need to develop a new kind of services, that means software, infrastructure, deployment method, and you need to go fast, you cannot do it by yourself, so you need to find providers who are flexible enough just to adapt themselves or give us some of the features that should come in 6 months a bit in preview so we can be a bit schneller. You need scalability. As I said, we really like the fact that when we have new customers, when we have new blockchain nodes, we can just pile up hypervisor as much as we want. If we ask Vision, they can deploy our OpenShift cluster everywhere. That means our flow of working, our SOP, our process going to be the same everywhere. And this is a huge value when you want to keep your team small and efficient. In terms of compliance also, both have all the certification you want. As Antoine said, there's going to be more and more certification topping up this. That's help also to get more deal, and that's also help because they have dedicated hypervisor, which we are one of the users, that you have the compliance of working with your own machine, and when the auditors come, you can show them, this is my machine. It's not shared by anybody else but Taurus, and Taurus customers are all on it. And it's a huge added value, even if it seems simple. From a legal framework perspective, it's a really, really huge advantage. That bypass a lot of difficulties we have. And finally, support. I think I will speak something really obvious. Vision team are really, really highly scaled SRE, and we chose them because basically they're making us better, because they have all the knowledge we don't have, or we're trying to grow up, and they often have good advice about deployment, good advice about how to package our softwares, good advice about how to scale up. Lately, we had a huge issue for upgrading our databases. We're using Cockroach on multiple data centers. And we had some downtime when we did a massive upgrade. And with the help of Vision engineers, we modified the way we automate the deployment of the database so that way there was no downtime at all. And of course, same for Exoscale. We had issue for deploying OpenShift on Exoscale. They help us because there was some PXO boot issue. We need help for security and audit and compliance, and they also help us to arrange a bit the roadmap, arrange the way we negotiate contracts, so that way we have all the checkbox marked. And that's for our product. So takeover is we develop software and infrastructure for banks and financial institutions that allow them to leverage the new upcoming digital assets. Challenge are we have a ton of data to manage in terms of Explorer, because we need to index those blockchain. We need a hyper secure, highly regulated environment to run core banking, core element systems by ourselves, and we leverage massively Vision and Exoscale for this because they have all the trust that we need and that we built over those 4 years, and I'm happy to continue working with them for this. And I will let Aarno speak for the real technical part because I was forced to be on the business part.
Thank you, Sébastien. Thank you for the insights of what you do and how you do it. So you saw APPUiO, you heard OpenShift already. What is this? So APPUiO is our brand name, our product name for our OpenShift as a service that we provide on Exoscale. And we, as a Vision, as a company, we also use SKS and we also use Rancher and Rancher Kubernetes on Exoscale, of course. But this talk is now about the OpenShift part. APPUiO is not only the OpenShift as a service, it's also, you can have it private clusters, as we do for Taurus. You can have, with APPUiO Cloud, a shared cloud service that's also running on Exoscale. And of course, these are the tools. And then there's a large community. We have a community chat, lots of documentation, how to use it, how to deploy, and so on. And of course, the Vision, the company, with 50 people there to help you then be able to use it and integrate and grow on top of it. And as you already had your slide with the layers, that's my version, right? There's the different layers of the cake. We have the infrastructure with Exoscale. We have the generic platform with Kubernetes and OpenShift. And then Taurus and Sébastien can handle all the container and the container orchestration config basically on top, and can build up on top of this stack, which is running already for many different customers. And they can basically leverage that work that is already being done. And that, of course, makes sense when you can focus on that part, instead of putting the 50 developers Sébastien has on top of the 7 boxes on the 9 boxes on the left, you can focus the 50 people on the 2 boxes on the top here when you get all the platform and the infrastructure from providers that can basically help you and help you scale, as you already mentioned. And we believe that Kubernetes is the right abstraction for that. We believe that this is a free and open standard that has been adopted by all major vendors, of course, including Exoscale, both from the infrastructure side, but also from the software and ISV side. We see a lot of software product vendors standardizing on Kubernetes, providing Docker containers and configuration stuff instead of MSI or a 50-page Word file describing what and how you have to install it to be able to onboard. And of course, we're also happy to support other customers like Finova to be able to roll that out, for example, in Swiss banking in this case. For Exoscale especially, we do the integration, of course, in the Exoscale infrastructure. We have the private clusters. They're available, of course, in every region. We have shared APPUiO clusters, the APPUiO cloud, available in select regions. And of course, integrating in all the other value-add services that Exoscale provides, whether that's the S3 storage, SOS, or the database as a service. Both of them you can basically order from within the Kubernetes cluster and then provisions you the service and gives you back the Kubernetes secret so that then you can use S3 or use database, but you don't have to care and log into another web GUI and order it manually or use Terraform and all this multitasking. Bring it all down to Kubernetes config, apply it to the cluster using Argo CD, and then being able to do what you do best, develop software that's cool and that runs on top. There's, of course, a lot of more tooling around that we use. Most of it is open source. We're an open source company ourselves. We have, I think, between 400 and 500 repos now on GitHub. We are actually our backup operator was just accepted into the CNCF project. It's now a sister project of Kubernetes itself, which, of course, we're super happy. And this type of contribution and collaboration is exactly what we stand for. And we believe, and I think you already said it verbally, right? I mean, the traditional IT governance of talking to an auditor, and then you look at each layer of the stack, and you go look at the server, you go look at the operating system, go look at the application, and every year you go through it every again and again and again. Whereas if you build on top of existing pieces, basically the pieces can already be audited or even certified, and you as an auditor have only to look at the topmost part and the configuration or definition of the lower part. And of course, that's also sort of focus not only manpower-wise, developer, but also security and compliance-wise. And of course, that creates a long list of benefits, which you, of course, can imagine. We as Vision, our mission is to help software developers to run their applications anywhere. We do that by providing application operations, Kubernetes platforms, and standard software as a service that's needed around the application and for the process of getting the application from Git to production. And this sort of DevOps collaboration where there's not only the tools and the processes that, from experience doing operations 24/7 are important, but of course also the people. The people with the mentality to collaborate, with the mentality to share, that's of course a big part of being the DevOps company. DevOps is not something we sell, it's something that forms together with the developers from our customers and us being operations engineering specialists and being able to support that with 24/7, of course. We're one of the few GitLab Select partners in Europe, helping our customers. We also provide it as a managed service, of course, for Git management and the whole deployment automation. We're an Nginx partner, actually the Nginx partner of the year for the Alps region last year. You see, it's all open source. Yes, of course, there's a vendor that supports that in both with Red Hat, SUSE, F5, but also GitLab. But that's exactly how we work together in this ecosystem of open source, and of course in this ecosystem together with Exoscale. And we're super happy and proud to together have won 38 out of 40 European countries in the OCRE program, which is basically to be able to serve European universities with cloud infrastructure and cloud services, and of course being working with Exoscale since the founding of both of our companies, us in 2014, Exoscale in 2011 originally. I think we've been working together since 2015, and seeing my face on the Exoscale Partner Program website, I mean, that's exactly the type of partnership we work together with. And last but not least, thank you for being here. As a small token of appreciation, I want to invite you to try out the APPUiO Cloud for free. Use the voucher code Exoscale 2022, and I'm happy to, of course, that runs of course on Exoscale, and I'm happy to give you access to that and try it out if you want to use it. That one is now the shared platform. Don't book your banking customer data on that one. If you want a private one, of course, we can look into that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Aarno and Sébastien. So I'm really proud to having you here. Taurus, one of my favorite customers at Exoscale. We have all favorite customers here, so as well as then artists. So it's really a success story, and we're really proud to support you in all what you're doing. I really appreciate this. So questions from the audience? Everything clear? So you can guess, maybe I have one question. So why would you recommend Exoscale to one of your friends?
That's a difficult question, because there is like the human argument and the technical argument. Technically, Exoscale is fast. It has all the nice candy API endpoint you want. So basically, you can use Terraform on it, which is all the only things you need. And also, it's probably the only cloud provider in Switzerland where you can get a coffee with your salesperson. And if you have a real issue, you can just go call him and say, please, I need to discuss something about our contract. Which, good luck for doing this with the big company.
Guess so, yes. Thank you very much for having you.
Thank you.
So.